Hello, folks. John Shinholser here, live from Richmond, Virginia, the McShin Foundation, one of our Getting the Herd series podcasts. Happy holidays to everybody. I hope everybody's having a good holiday so far and will continue to do so. We have a very special show today. Very excited about this show. Of course, we got the famous Nathan Mitchell on my left, the old regular at this, the award-winning host of this show, and who I call Paul K. I don't want to butcher his last name, but he's down from Arlington, Virginia. But we'll do a couple of quick introductions from our guests. Paul, you go first.
Okay, everyone. I'm Paul Kalchbrenner, person in long-term recovery since March of 1988, and here today I come down to McShin often. I love spending time here, seeing what's going on, interacting with people. I work with a SAFE project, helping them on their Safe Communities program, and I'm also a member of the Arlington Community Services Board, where I chair the Substance Use Disorder Committee, and I also participate in ARI, which is the Arlington Addiction Recovery Initiative. So we work on a number of different issues related to trying to help people find recovery, find services, and maintain recovery.
So we have a very rare breed in the house tonight, an old timer in recovery, a government consultant, and a bureaucrat. So I'm gonna have fun with this one today. Nathan.
Well, actually, if I can, Paul, for those who may not know, what is SAFE?
SAFE project, it stands for Stop the Addiction Fatality Epidemic.
Okay.
It's a national nonprofit. It was started by Admiral Sandy Winnefeld and his wife Mary, after unfortunately they lost their younger son to overdose when he was 19 years old. And so they work along several different lines, but focus on communities, campuses, and veterans. And we have various programs, along those lines to look at those specific populations and have a focus towards helping people in those areas.
Thanks. Thank you so much for coming today. As y'all know, many of you know, I'm Nathan Mitchell, and I'm a person in sustained recovery from a substance use disorder. And I love that I've got sitting right here next to me two people who got clean in the 80s. Found that sobriety and bring that long-term recovery to this podcast. I'm a person who works every day to become a little more acceptable, a little more responsible, and a little more productive to be of service to the community. And I'm really grateful to be here and be able to sit with you. John, I know you've got this incredible PowerPoint that you shared, and I know you want to talk about that. So I'm going to stop talking and let you talk.
Well, Nathan, you're getting to be quite the mind reader, man. Hey, folks, for those who don't know me, though, I too am a person in long-term recovery from substance use disorders. For me, that means I've been drug and alcohol free for over 38 years. And you're getting ready. We're going to go through a little PowerPoint. One that we presented last week to the Substance Abuse Service Council here in Virginia, which is a council that originally was a governor's council. Now I believe it's a General Assembly council, but Senator John Bell was the chairman of it, and Senator Boysko, and I believe Delegate Hope, and there was another delegate, Mertz, or I can't recall the name.
Delegate Hodges.
Yeah,
he's a Republican.
But it's a council that has members on it, and they have bureaucrats on it, and every now and then they slip and they let a guy like me present to it. But I also sat on a joint Senate House subcommittee for 3 years in 2009, 10, and 11, SJ 73 and SJ 318. So I have extensive knowledge of the topic we're going to discuss today, as well as this General Assembly session begins my third decade advocating down at the General Assembly. So if I come across as jaded and frustrated during today's show, that's because I am, and I come by it honestly. So I guess, Todd, we got that PowerPoint up there. People can see it. Let's go to the next slide. And when I was talking to Senator Bell, he said, John, look, he called me on a Monday, said, well, I want you to present Wednesday. Just come up with some solutions, something you think we can do, this session that not going to hurt a lot of people. And the first thing I said, well, you could get the governor to make an announcement that 12-step meetings are at least in the category of education. And the Supreme Court seems to think we're in the category of religious. So we should certainly be able to have 25 people at a meeting, especially if they physical distance properly and follow CDC guidelines. So 12-step meetings do not fall in that 10 people or less. And I also, we'll talk about it here in a minute, there was some money awarded to the Virginia Association of Recovery Residences that they got hung up in bureaucracy. Authorized, write the check July, and here it is December, and they haven't got their money yet, knowing they got to spend it by the end of the cycle. So it's another example of bureaucratic barriers and BS, their way of messing with one of the most practical recovery solutions in the community, and that's people with lived experience helping those with lived experience. So next slide, Todd. I think if we can throw some funds at the authentic non-government organizations, which are probably more effective in most cases, they're less costly and they're ready, meaning we're operational now, versus bureaucratic recovery support services, which are a little more restrictive, a little more costly, and they're slow to gear them up. I explain the difference between the two. I use the phrase authentic recovery support service providers a lot versus the bureaucratic ones. And like Paul, you work for a CSB, so you know what it's like trying to procure funding for a recovery coach and the training they got to go through and the rules and the regulations. And, God bless everybody involved. It's not the worst thinking in the world, but it can be problematic when you need that immediate, let's get her done attitude. You know what I mean? Do you have that in your CSB? You got peers up there, right?
Sure. Yeah, we have a couple peers that work with, people coming out of the criminal justice system, people looking for treatment, and we're actually redesigning a safe station program. So anyone who wants to, without fear of arrest or prosecution, if they're under the influence or have paraphernalia, can walk into any fire station 24/7 and get connected to a peer and get connected to services.
So you have two.
Two full-time, yes.
And how big a population do y'all serve? How big the jurisdiction?
260,000.
Wow. So here we are in the middle of the metropolitan Richmond area. And I know between McShin, True Recovery, War Foundation, Real Life, the VAR members, we probably have over 100 authentic peers in this community, ripping and running.
Yeah, and I will say that's just the county. We work with other groups and NGOs and other nonprofits that also have peers. So
there's more than just a couple running around up there.
Yeah.
I knew there were. That was like a trick question,
Yeah.
I was just really demonstrating the difference between authentic peers and NGOs.
We use everyone we can.
I got you. Next slide there, Todd. For those who are watching, you'll have access to this PowerPoint, of course, and this whole session is being taped and filmed. It'll be on our homepage forever, but these are just some websites you can go to that we have very good evidence, very good data on. Next slide there. And, and the reason I'm always big on, heavily funding the authentic recovery support providers that aren't government agencies is simply because you get a lot more bang for your buck. And what that looks like here in the Richmond area, for example, we must have 500 sober beds in this community, 500. And that's a lot of beds. Matter of fact, we probably need one less jail in this community as a result of that. And I'm glad to see that the court systems and the prosecutors, they see our value. And the day doesn't go by, we can't get referrals to us from the courtroom because they know these folks, the ones that are honest, open-minded, and willing, will have a very good shot at recovery, at launching into recovery. And that's just, we can ramp up. Like we're opening up a new house next week. We could double and triple our capacity if we had the funding within 90 days. It's that simple for us. But to run these things through your typical government agencies, it seems to take forever. And then the rules and regulations they pile on, it becomes encumbersome at that point in time. And I'm not opposed to existing systems, but if we just use that COVID-19 mentality, let's reshape some policies really quick. Let's throw some money at it. Nathan, you've been following this space for a minute. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, my thoughts, of course, being that when you said that COVID-19 mentality, and that what I hear from that is a sense of urgency, and we're looking at the numbers now. I mean, we're looking at overdoses and overdose deaths, here in Virginia alone, hitting the 2,000 mark by the end of this year, which is, an over 35% increase over last year. That's absurd that we're doing that. We're absurd that we don't have the capacity, and we're actually defunding resources that can actually provide real solutions. So
Paul, what's it like in Arlington? The overdose rates are up, the relapse rates are up. I mean, what's y'all sense?
Yeah, we
up
have,
there?
Unfortunately, in 2019, we had only 6 fatal overdoses. Last I checked, we're at 17 this year.
Wow.
And that obviously is a huge increase. And that doesn't include people that will go to DC or Baltimore or even down here to Richmond and overdose here. These are just people that have unfortunately passed away from overdose in Arlington. But yeah, we've seen a huge increase in non-fatal and fatal overdose from opioids, as well as other substances that are being mixed with fentanyl.
At your CSB meetings, do y'all talk about that? Is there any sense of urgency to do something different, or?
Yeah, we, particularly within the Substance Use Disorder Committee, and we work with our corresponding staff liaisons in the county. They've done a good job of securing some additional funding to fund another, peer recovery specialist, as well as, and what I really like is there's been more of a focus on recovery supports. So we will subsidize people if they're in an Oxford house for certain number of weeks, and if they still are struggling, we'll extend it. So just looking at ways to help get people on their feet, especially in early recovery, especially these days.
Peer connection is vital, man.
Yeah.
I mean, that navigator that can help provide soft handoffs from one service to another, that's critical stuff. On our next slide, I'll talk a little bit about, and keep in mind that this PowerPoint we showed to the council wasn't necessarily in any particular order. They're all very important, but we actually talked about how important it would be to help reclassify some of these felony drug charges and treat these addicts more like they got the mental illness that they do have. And there are 5 states that are reclassified from felony to misdemeanor user amounts of drugs, as well as Oregon, which did a more of a Portugal type flip. But, I think here in Virginia, I told Senator Bell, and keep in mind, everything we talked about, Nathan can back me up on, is that all the members present were pretty much thought these were all really good ideas, and they're trying to figure out how to get them done sooner than later. But that 10-day user amounts, no more felon out than the actual drug use or the paraphernalia. Now, of course, if there's other crimes associated with that, so be it. That gives a good opportunity to get these guys in these correctional, like especially jails. And we talked about how when you do go to jail, make sure that if they suffer from mental illness, you sort of humanize the jail experience with these recovery programs, really facilitated by recovering people. Of course, the correctional professionals have to provide the safety and the, keep them locked up and feed them type aspect. But as far as delivering the recovery support, there's no reason why these hope dealers can't come in from the outside, do their 40 hours a week and develop those relationships, give them that hope shot, that vision forward, and yet that pathway. So when they get out, they already have relationships with recovery and they're easier to access. You got any of that action up there, Paul?
Yeah, we have a special unit within the jail where people are trying to recover. Not quite a recovery pod like you and I went to a couple of years back, but has that focus, and people come in and bring in meetings and speakers. I'd like to see more of that. I think we just do a couple meetings a week, but that's important. And then, like you said, reconnecting people, especially when they're getting ready to come out.
Our data shows that there's a 50% reduction in not only recidivism, but the impact in the community addiction has, such as ER room visits, overdoses, things of that nature. But Nathan, you are actually a recipient of this type of model we're talking about. Just in 30 seconds or so. What was your little?
Yeah, so I was arrested in 2016 on a possession charge, and to come to find out that a possession charge is a felony up to 10 years in prison here in Virginia, and there is a first offenders rule which I qualified for at the time, but of course I was a person using, and I didn't stop using, and of course I ended up failing to meet the needs to become a first offender. So I ended up becoming a felon as a result of this. And in pretrial, there was no introduction, no access to, and I'm in Warrenton in Fauquier County. So, I realize it's different by municipality, but there was no access to any kind of recovery solutions. What I ended up doing was fooling this woman that I was doing well and lost 35 pounds in front of this lady in the course of 4 months. And she thought I was doing great while I was getting high in the parking lot after I got out of there. So, I ended up messing that up and then picking up new charges.
So what
in
happened?
DC.
What changed?
What changed is, so I violated in pretrial, I violated again in probation because I continued to use. And when I violated in probation, I got sent back to Warrenton. And the difference there from when I had been in 2016 to when I got there in 2018 was that McShin had put a pod in there. McShin, and it was a recovery pod, and I had actual access to people who had been in the cells where I had been, literally in the same cells, who came back and said, you know what, there is a way out of this. You do not have to continue to do that. And it was the first hope shot that I had from an authentic peer I still talk to on a regular basis.
And we actually had a recovery center right across the street from the jail. So Nathan got out of jail, walked over to the recovery center, and within a short period of time, he's in a recovery house down here in Richmond. And now he's one of our best peer leaders. And, so one thing we did talk about, and that was maybe Virginia's not quite ready to reclassify from felony to misdemeanor, but certainly expand the first offenders law to multiple offenders. Let the judges have discretion. You don't have to convict these people of these felonies, especially if they'll comply with the jail program. And on the next slide, I just pointed out the 6 states that reclassified drugs: Oklahoma, Utah, Alaska, California, Colorado, and Connecticut. And some of these are Democrat and Republican states. These are red and blue. So Virginia doesn't always have to lag behind everybody. They could actually be a leader in this movement. And Senator Bell and Senator Boysko, they both agreed. They said it's about time Virginia takes leadership. And on our next slide there, Todd, we talk about, humanizing that correctional experience, because, a lot of folks that go to jail and prison, they suffer from trauma, and if anybody's familiar with the ACEs score, the ACEs test, that verifies all this. So when you have a trauma survivor or victim going into these correctional facilities, it makes them worse when they come out. That's why it's so important to have these people with lived experience up in there, giving them that hope shot. But you got to have the capacity in the community to sober living, the recovery centers. And it's just not enough tax dollars for the CSBs to do it the way they like to do it. It'll just never happen. So really by default, our existing agencies really aren't capable of providing the capacity that we need in a timely fashion at a cost we can afford to get the outcome that these systems do give. And we got some great examples on the next slide of some fabulous jail programs that I personally know a little bit about, and that's Chesterfield Jail, Henrico Jail. Richmond City had a great program under C.T. Woody. I'm not exactly sure what it's like now. Pamunkey Regional Jail, Rappahannock, Shenandoah, Warrenton Regional Jail, and then I've had some good folks come out of Haynesville and Indian Creek in the DOC. One of our best peer leaders here, we recently met over the summer at Haynesville, and now he's one of my most powerful peer leaders. But these felonies will prevent them from working at the CSB. Is that a problem up there where you're at, Paul?
Yeah, we have some, like I said, some jail programs, but I think we really need to.
Well, you're in a jail up there, right? You got peers in there?
Yeah.
But when you hire a peer, you got to do background checks. Is felony a barrier? Or can you waive them, or do you know?
No, I know there is background checks. I don't know the exact nature.
Right, because I know a lot of these state agencies, they will not hire a peer with a felony.
Okay.
And the sad part about it is we make the best facilitators. And when I say we, that's us in this space. Fortunately, yet I don't have a felony, but I know it's a big problem for a lot of these agencies because they can ding them on the background checks. And that's not only a barrier, but I actually think there's a little conspiracy in there, one way to sort of hold back the whole peer movement, because God forbid the peers save the day. We can't have that happen with all them social workers sitting around. On the next slide, You know, I had to mention the part where if the insurance companies did the job they were doing back in the 80s, you know, when I got clean in 82, we had treatment centers on every corner here in Richmond. And they were great hospital-based treatment centers. You could go to any ER room, be in a rehab that day. And what these insurance companies were able to do basically was cost shift, because now you got Medicaid out here picking up the slack, and the quality of care is nothing compared to that commercial care you were getting in these treatment centers and these hospitals. So, you know, I was telling Senator Bell and Senator Boysko, you gotta hold these insurance companies accountable. You know, they are in violation for the most part of the mental health addiction parity bill passed in 2008. They're just simply not complying, and they're coming up with every reason why they don't have to comply. Do you know much about that, Paul? Or
I don't think we have that issue with the facilities that are run by the county. We have 2 facilities. One includes a detox, and we haven't.
How are they funded?
Through the county.
The county funds them, so that's good.
Yeah.
So how many beds are
and
there?
then we like with the peers, we also work with other, you know, private IOPs and people that provide different kinds of treatment.
Well, I like the part where you build up the private sector IOPs and private sector rehab, but make the insurance cover their fair share. Just don't rely on the Medicaid expansion to take care of all of that, because that's cost shifting, plain and simple. And also in the 80s, remember our correction population tripled basically too. So by shifting the cost, the taxpayers not only picked up the cost in the Medicaid department, but in the criminal justice system and the, you know, Department of Corrections. So I think with the explosion of ramping up this authentic non-government organizations, then we can down the road think of perhaps defunding some of these correctional agencies and criminal justice agencies. And I'm not really talking law enforcement or front line. We actually need to beef up the front line a little bit, beef up those jail programs and those court programs. Well, there's a lot of improvement to be made in those areas.
Yeah, I have a strong issue with the word defunding, and because what you're saying, defunding criminal justice, yes, we need to defund, but I think, you know, we need to reallocate funds to crisis intervention treatment and
totally agree.
Yeah, and so I mean, I know what you mean when you say
cost shifting.
Cost
How
shifting,
about that?
because that gets lost, I think, in the space in the Black Lives Matter movement. That defund the police just gets completely lost on what that's meant.
How about reallocate funding?
Yeah,
come up with a kinder word.
Yeah, in Arlington, we're talking a lot about how to better train the police, and then again, also pair them with people with lived experience with either mental health or substance
that's
abuse.
capacity building. That's where Virginia, we need to ramp up that capacity. We do need peers riding around with EMTs, with policemen, with, you know, every firehouse and police station should have walk-in. I need help services, have a peer available. Same day, get them over to sober living or get them detox if that's what they need.
Every emergency department.
Now, we all agree on that, you know, and that substance abuse council, they all nodding up and down. That's a great idea. That's a great idea. But, you know, where's the stumbling blocks?
The stumbling block is the $10,000 per arrest that gets made, and the criminal justice system entirely. But
well, there you go. We're back to that reallocating those funds we were talking about.
Yeah.
But on the next slide, I made a big shout out to the one after that one, Todd, that nothing about us without us. Keep going, Todd. I'm way ahead of you up here on the table here. But I noticed in the Substance Abuse Council, they seem to agree with this too. At the CSB level, at the Department of Behavioral Health level, all these community correction committee meetings, and every time there's a discussion on how to help addiction, well, by God, shouldn't you have a bunch of recovering people at the table too, talking about what worked for them? And, you know, it sounds like they're trying up there in Arlington, Paul. I mean, you feel like you got good representation?
Yeah. You know, Patrick Hope was a former CSB member in Arlington. I think he has good understanding of these issues. Our last kind of go around meeting with them, we talked a lot about the, you know, proposed legalization of marijuana in Virginia.
Oh, that's coming up on another slide here.
Yeah.
So.
And, you know, had a really good conversation, and I'm open about being in recovery. And they all asked me questions like, you know, what are the dangers here, especially with young people? And that's what the conversation, you know, how to protect young people if we're going to decriminalize.
Well,
marijuana.
I explained to the council how legalizing marijuana is a win-win-win for everybody involved, because number one, once you regulate it, you kind of take the black market out as long as you don't exploit the growers and the buyers and the consumers. Just treat it like the alcohol. Alcohol's got a good model for that. Let the guys grow weed and sell it and get it in stores. But with the regulation, you get to regulate the strength of it, just like they do alcohol. You got beer, wine, 80 proof, 40 proof, 100 proof. You regulate it. And these kids, because it's illegal, they got more access to it than if it was legal. See, once it's legal, it's barcoded. Then you can know exactly, you can trace it back to where it comes from. Of course, much like alcohol, not too many people care. I don't see them tracing back those kids smoking cigarettes, where they got those. But we do have legal systems in place that handle the prevention, the regulation, the education. The kids are going to be better off down the road. And also, okay, my kid gets strung out on weed. I'd rather help a kid get off pot than alcohol, or get off opiates, or get off crack, or get off huff and dust. So all the way around. And also 85% of marijuana consumers don't abuse it, just like 85% of alcohol consumers don't abuse it. So when the addict finds their drug of choice, that's just the way it is. So I think for the marijuana argument, now the big argument is going to be, what do you do with the tax money? What are you going to spend it on? And I think since the non-government organizations have always never got funding to speak of, that's a perfect opportunity. I suggest that 25% of tax dollars for marijuana sales flow through to the non-government organizations, providing that capacity that we so desperately need right now, leaving 75% for communities of color, for education, for all the, harm reduction and veterans and everything else, And the committee, they were okay with this, they had questions. And I'm glad you mentioned Delegate Hope, because a lot of times Delegate Hope, his heart's in the CSB, because he came through the CSB, so he's really married to the CSB. So he's one of those members that, well, by God, the CSB ought to be able to fix it. Well, guess what? They can't. They would if they could, but they can't, for two reasons. They'll never get enough money for the capacity we need, and their thinking just isn't like our thinking. We are nothing can substitute for an authentic recovery person with lived experience, period. You know what I mean? And we're very capable of weeding out the bad apples and moving forward. And our navigational growing pains and challenges, we're doing wonderful, I think, here. You've been to McShin. You see how we operate around here. We don't play. We're all about business. But Delegate Hope, I think he finally realized that, what, government is not going to have the answer for everything. Sometimes you got to reach to the weapon in the arsenal. If it's another recovering person, if it's without parallel, by God, we ought to use that person.
Yeah, I think more and more elected officials are realizing we need to have a everything approach, use every tool we got.
Well, they say that over and over and over, but yet they don't want to fund every tool we got or every approach. So I'm all about to put your money where your mouth is. Yeah. Nathan, I see you over here.
Well, we just had this discussion about how do we define authentic. Somebody asked me that, Robert Legg asked me that, the other day. And so we defining what these words and terms mean for us, so that we're not going to ask for something that we don't know what, to expect back. I look at recovery as a long-term, as a long-term goal for me, and one day at a time. Yes. But I also know that it was really important for me to stay in recovery housing for 2 years. Personally for me, I have decades and decades of using, I needed to change a lot in my life. It wasn't a 30 days and bam, you're done. So there's an important part of the piece that I think that may not be connecting with our policymakers, is that recovery doesn't happen in a 28-day, 30-day program. It happens
it's a 5-year period. Yeah. If you can get a person through 5 years, then there's 85% chance they'll be good to go the rest of their life. And what authentic really means is non-bureaucratized provider, non-bureaucratized agency. Because once you get bureaucratized, your effectiveness is greatly diminished and your costs are tremendously increased, plain and simple. And why would you want to do that in a time of crisis We need every tool and weapon we can get. And if it's non-bureaucratized and if it's authentic, they should be happy about that, jumping for joy. But instead, they seem to be cowering and worried they might lose control or funding or something. I don't get it, These are their own children we're talking about. But something about that bureaucracy, once you get up in there, I don't know if it's the air, the water, the paper, or what, but there's nothing wrong with non-government organizations providing authentic recovery support that are cranking out tremendous results, so I'm all about that.
Well, you mentioned the cannabis tax revenue, and the estimates are from about 142 to 300 plus million after 5 years in that neighborhood. You're looking at 25% of that. You're looking at somewhere between like 42 and $75 million per year that you're asking. And I think that could make a huge difference, in Virginia here in the Commonwealth, because that can help a lot of people, and actually, helping the people getting out of jails. That we have a huge problem with that reentry, from incarceration into society, where there's weeks where services aren't being provided in a timely manner, and we're losing people right off the bat. McShin, one of the things that organizations like McShin does so well is that bed-to-bed recovery support, and without it, personally, I wouldn't have survived, I don't think. So we need more.
We mentioned the $10 million, Senator Bell, Senator Boysko, Delegate Hope. Well, what's it going to cost? Well, look, this session, y'all should invest $10 million, period. And he said, well, what are we going to get for it? Well, that's 1,200 30-day stays in a recovery organization, sober living, with peer supports, linkage to, addiction professionals, clinical professions. And that is thousands. I couldn't really give a solid number on how many thousands of extra sober beds that'd be, but I'm guessing 3,000 to 4,000 range. That's 2 to 3 jails in Virginia they won't need. Now, I don't know what it costs to run 3 jails a year in Virginia, but I'm guessing around $100 million. So for $10 million, you get to spare blowing $100 million, and 50% of that money, although, the residual is going to be there. Meaning that $100 million, you're going to say that $50 million every year, that goes up to $100 million, then it'll double to $200 million. And next thing you know, we simply won't need the capacity we have with the criminal justice system. That's when you can start reallocating those dollars back into the health side of things and the recovery side. So I think, everybody at that committee, they didn't really seem to have a problem. It's just, what's it going to look like? Give us a white paper, John. Can you do a white paper? So now we're working on a white paper to sort of show in writing what this is going to look like, what the benefit's going to be, the value's going to be. Now, Paul, you're sitting here listening to, a true warrior in the authentic side of things, but yet how things really work inside bureaucracies and agencies. And any thoughts jumping out at you right now you could share with us?
Yeah, well, change is always slower than we'd like it to be. But yeah, you have a good argument for kind of the return on investment here. And that's always a good strategy to take with policymakers who are going to look at the bottom line.
Well, it's not like they don't have the money, because every day I read the paper, 10 million going out to a helpline, 70 million going out to some air in the sky program. It's crazy the amount of money that I see going and coming and going. And this is real investment, real value, real return on your money. This is the kind of stuff bankers line up to lend money for. I could actually, if Virginia would guarantee me the money, I would bet money I could go out and get investors to give me the money right away, knowing they're going to get their money back. So that's how good this stuff is. Nathan, I see you over there thinking hard.
Well, I was actually thinking about what Debbie Rosenbaum here says on Facebook. Do you have time for a question here, John?
Sure.
So Debbie Rosenbaum, she's a long-term listener and a board member here at McShin. She says, Paul, this is a question for you, Paul.
Okay.
Are you able, as a person in recovery, to share your recovery with your participants, given the job that you hold?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
The CSPs vary a little bit from county to county. In Arlington, it's purely volunteer.
Purely volunteer?
Yeah, the
Well,
CSP members.
the board members are.
Yes.
I think they're all volunteer, aren't they?
I think in Fairfax, the CSP members are
The
volunteer,
board members are volunteer.
the CSB has like services directly underneath it. it's structured a little
But
differently.
as a board member, you can share all you want with
Oh, yes.
anybody you want.
Yes, and I do, because I think that's important.
Well, you're here now, so that's proof that you do that.
Well, I have a follow up on that. What is the percentage of people in recovery to not recovery on your board?
I don't know of anyone else in recovery on the CSB as a whole. Within
How many
my
board members on their Arlington board? Is it 12, 14?
something like that, for at least
And
14,
you're
15.
the only recovery person on that board.
Now on our substance use disorder committee, that's not just CSB members. That's also people
In
we
the
bring in. So
community.
we have other people in
Well, see,
recovery.
that's part of the problem
on that.
because by law, Virginia CSB board compilation, you supposed to have a third of the board members are supposed to come and be consumers, one in the physical health side, another in the mental health, and a third in the substance abuse side. So a third of your board by law, according to the Virginia, compilation for CSB, and they even tweaked it because they couldn't get, I guess, people in recovery from substance use, so they get family members on it.
Right.
So,
I was going to say there's some people that have family members involved who have struggled with mental health and substance abuse as well.
well, I think if those boards were comprised of real recovery warriors like yourself and Nathan and me and people like us, if a third of these CSBs had real recovering people from substance use disorders with lived experience and solutions, then those boards would find out that they could probably do a little bit more than they think.
Yeah. Now I have a couple of people on the substance use disorder committee who I'm, always trying to push to be on the full CSB, trying to get people that have had the lived experience on there. So,
But the problem is you have to be appointed by a board of supervisors, right?
yeah, I mean, there has to be an opening, first of all. And then, you have to kind of work.
So these politicians that get elected, they appoint the board members on the boards.
They put on recommendation of the CSB. It's really both parties, the county board and the community service board.
So really, they basically they stacked the deck, they rigged the boards, man. Nathan, I see you chuckling over there. I mean, they rigging the system, man.
I can only speak for Arlington. I think they've been very open to having people with a lot of diverse experience on there. So.
If they were truly open, they'd have a third of their board compilation would be people in recovery from substance use disorders that can actually light them up a little bit. But now I got to be fair to the Arlington CSB. I don't know much about them. They might be the best one out of 40 for all I know. But I know I've been to a lot of CSB board meetings around the community, and to me, it's almost disgraceful the way they respond to solutions that are at their fingertips. But because they got some executive director that drinks his Kool-Aid from the state, that drink their Kool-Aid from NASDAQ, it's almost like a Kool-Aid drinking club. How dare you go against what we're trying to get you to do? And you look at other boards, like I know, for example, the Hanover School Board, just a couple years ago, one of the board members was saying, shouldn't we rename our schools that are named after Confederate heroes? This is right before Black Lives Matter. And the supervisor that appoints these people, they didn't reappoint them. I think they removed this person from the board because they weren't thinking like the will of the appointee. And boy, was that person ahead of the curve, because the BLM hit, and guess what? They changing the names of those schools now. So maybe we just need to have a recovery lives matter movement or something, and get some change. But I'm probably getting too radical for a podcast right now.
I like that. The recovery lives matter. Yeah.
Well, I don't want to take away from Black Lives
no,
Matter. So you got to be sensitive of what's going on around you, as my wife reminds me.
You are very lucky. You know that.
Oh, I'm super lucky. So on my next slide, the authentic recovery centers have really, I say, the best value. But one thing, why recovery centers are so important, it's a place consumers can just kind of walk into. Like, Paul, while you're sitting here today, we've had 2 or 3 people come here today, since you've been here, but since 8 o'clock this morning, and they're now in sober living. You're going to do our 315 group today. You're going to meet several people there that this is their first 24 hours here. Yeah. Some of them came from jail. Some of them came from relapse. Some of them are just coming to recovery for the first time. Yeah. So that's one of the best values of these recovery centers. And they take so much pressure off the existing systems that don't have the capacity. So these recovery centers, we actually fill the gaps that make a big difference. And then, every day we're linking these kids up to their addiction doctor. We got a doctor right around the corner, and they get their whatever medication they need. We got 4 Zoom rooms in the building, so they're doing their counseling appointments. I mean, these recovery centers done right. There's no substitute for them.
Yeah, and it's great that you guys are operating and having that in-person connection, because as you know, one of the reasons the overdose numbers are going up is because a lot of treatment centers have gone virtual. You don't have that personal connection, and it's, as we know, it's just tougher. It's a tougher environment too.
I see Jesse Wasaki, the ultimate weapon for an addict is a recovering addict. I want people in recovery speaking for me. Jesse, I hope you're having a good time up in Maine. I hope it's snowing right now and you didn't bring the right clothes. But just so you'll know, all's been quiet down here at McShin while you've been away on vacation. Matter of fact, we're using your office for a little group room down there. We got newcomers camping out down there. I don't think we've had a problem since Jesse's been gone, man. So
smooth sailing, yeah.
It's amazing. The cat's away, the mice play, man. Wait till you get done today, Paul. You'll see how calm everything is here today. That's because our chief operating officer's on vacation in Maine right now.
Well, one of the reasons I came down today is to pick up my materials for the peer recovery specialist training that he's doing next month.
Is he doing next month? Is it the big one?
We're going to be spending, we're going to spend, I've done the recovery coaching with him as well, but we're going to have a lot of quality time.
Oh, yeah, Jesse, get ready. Paul's going to be moving in, man. So would you like a recovery center like McShin in Arlington? Was there a place for us up there?
Yeah, I would love it. Not just for Arlington, but for, surrounding area. Like I said, I've come down here many times and, you can just really feel the what's happening down here and the positive energy and the whole.
As much money y'all got up in Arlington, I can't believe you don't have a McShin recovery center up there.
I don't control that, but I can make a recommendation.
Yeah, but you think about it. I mean, good Lord, I often thought if the CSBs only did their jobs, we wouldn't need these recovery centers because they got 40 CSBs around the state. That's 40 potential recovery centers right there, but just don't bureaucratize the peers. You can regulate them a little bit. You need a little regulation in there, but just use our accreditation, our national accreditation, and we could solve all these problems within a year or two.
Yeah. But, very often at the full CSB meetings, we will have people come in and do presentations. So maybe we can get you up there and talk about this model and how it works and do some education.
That'll be your last meeting you'd be appointed to after that, because it seems like when I go to a CSB as a guest, the people that got me, they get fired or they don't ask them back. Too bad Robert Legg ain't watching this. He would know exactly what I'm talking about.
Paul,
well, maybe we'll have Carol do it then.
Paul, I've been in Virginia for years. Most of my life I've lived in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and I didn't know about CSBs until I came here to McShin. And if that's frustrating for me as a person who's gone through jail twice, because of as a result of my addiction. And that's certainly an area that, I think the NGOs and the CSBs can sort of work on collaborations. I'm a collaborator guy. I mean, I recognize that we have to collaborate in this space for common goals. And that certainly, to me personally, is a huge common goal. So how does that work for you guys in Arlington? I mean, we talk about Step Virginia, we talk about same-day access, and I always cringe when I hear same-day access. I'm sorry, Paul, because what that really means is same-day assessment, I find. So, and that we know you're a person in recovery, John's a person in recovery, I'm a person in recovery, Todd's a person in recovery. We know that when an addict reaches out, that's the time we need to help them immediately, not 3 weeks, you get to go, possibly go to get a bed somewhere. So how does that work for you in Arlington?
We've been very successful in getting people into a detox or treatment, within 24 hours.
That's awesome.
Right now, certainly the numbers are a little lower, but I think we've been able to meet the capacity and, in busier times and been able to get people to other places in surrounding communities. And that's one of the things I'm trying to do with kind of my counterparts in Fairfax and Alexandria is have more of a collaboration maybe create some kind of dashboard, because, you know, we might not have a bed available in this community, but maybe there's some available over here. And we're kind of in our silos still, and I think we can improve on coordination.
Oof.
You know, Debbie made a comment. She's a family member. She runs with family members. I don't want to break her anonymity into these anonymous family programs or anything, but even she said that family members concerned about their loved ones, they love it when people in recovery interact with them and help them. You know, that they want those people. They want us in the mix. Now, don't get me wrong. If you got a deeper level of needs, then you want a deeper, more appropriate professional. So, and I try to tell these CSB people over and over and over, look, you got some severely mentally ill people. You got some severe co-occurring disorders out there. Let the recovering people with substance use disorders help take the load off your backs a little bit, so you can focus more on the severe services that do require a higher level of clinical experience and intervention. And blending the two together like that, you know, it seems to me all they've been able to really accomplish is absorbing SA funds and get them buried in more severe mental illness funds. And we continue to be demonized and handled by the criminal justice system. And then we're back to stigma, you know, and I just think there's a problem in that aspect. And then I see Robert up there. Apparently he knows your Attorney General, Parisa Dagani Taffy.
Yeah, Parisa has been, and her office have been very helpful in kind of restructuring that Safe Station program. She definitely, I think, has more progressive views than the previous Commonwealth attorneys, who they set up a Safe Station program where the only place to go is basically the jail. So that wasn't maybe the best place to.
Hey, let me give you a hit right here for Parisa and your CSB. Waterville, Maine has a Safe Station in their police department. And over the last several years, we've had at least 50 people come down from Maine.
I heard you had a lot of people from Maine.
And over half of them to this day are still in their recovery, enjoying life.
A lot of them stay here, right?
Yeah, and you'll see some here. You'll meet some here.
You'll hear them.
Maybe today. But, you know, and here we are. Arlington's only, 90 miles away? God forbid you send folks down to one of the most successful recovery, you know, communities in the nation, and all across Virginia. We do get a couple people here and there for some CSBs, and I gotta believe it's some of that SOR money they probably spent sending some people down here. But if I was a CSB in Virginia, I would utilize McShin every chance I got, because, you know, we're your best critics, but we're also your best advocates too. You know, and I try to cheer these bureaucrats on and say, look, you know, for 20 years now, I'm beginning my third decade of advocating funds for you guys, but you still got to recognize the value of sober living run by sober people, recovery centers run by recovering people. I mean, a little teamwork here, you know, a little team play. These members on that Substance Abuse Council, they wanted nothing more than to see peace in the valley, you know what I mean? And how we're going to do this together is a we thing. And people think it's us, but it ain't us. Remember, we're on the receiving end of nothing. You know what I mean? It ain't like, you know, let's put them in and fund them. No, we're on the outside with nothing, it seems like. You know, so if there was ever a time to, you know, pony up and let's see what we're made of, now would be the time. Thoughts, Paul? I see you stunned over there.
No, I agree. I mean, I think, again, all
Okay,
the above approach.
We got 1 out of the 12 board members on your board agreed. That's why we need equal board compilation.
We'll get the other 11 board members on the show, you know, going forward.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of changes in the next year. Obviously, with the new administration coming in, kind of a more top-down approach, more aggressive attack, I guess, on the epidemic, because now we have the data to back up what we've all known all along, is that the numbers have been going up. So hopefully they will recognize the impact that local communities can have, and organizations like McShin.
Well, we got data showing that the number of recovery people are going up to come through these models. Mm-hmm. So don't wait 5-10 years to take full advantage of them. Nathan,
Yeah.
I see you over there. You stunned too, I can see.
I'm seeing that it's getting close to winding down here. We're at the 50-minute mark, and I know you want to take a break before Paul goes to run his group.
No, he's got 15 minutes. That group's at 3:15. He got plenty of time. And plus, I'm a Marine. There ain't no breaks for us, man. We go from one battle to the next, man. What do you mean break, man? What are you in the Army? Navy, something.
I just need a few seconds to microwave my coffee.
You can stop by my office. I've got fresh coffee.
Okay.
So, any closing thoughts, Paul? Or
no, I just really appreciate being here and spend time with you guys. This has been a great conversation. I'm always trying to learn more, and you can never know everything. And I will definitely think about some of this stuff and try to incorporate it and get back to you guys.
Well, let me ask
help
you,
me provide more information.
Well, let me ask you a quick question. I'm giving you an opportunity to be my devil's advocate here. And you know me, you know how I roll. You see what's going on in my life and my warrior type, inside and whatnot. But if you were me, knowing the objective we're trying to accomplish, is there anything you do different? I mean, do I need to shut up more, calm down, or what?
I think there's a way. I think we got to find a way to, get the word out about, how effective you are, how efficient you are from a cost perspective. The other cost benefits on the criminal justice system, and reducing the need for having people incarcerated, all those things need to be. Maybe that's that white paper that those guys want, but putting those together in a real tight kind of information packet.
So you'd appreciate a white paper.
Yeah,
or something. Did you hear that, Robert? Get busy, man. Don't lay down on that white paper.
Something that really kind of condenses all the things we've been talking about here in a, with graphs and pretty colors that people can quickly go through and quickly understand and say, okay, this works, and this could have real benefits for our community.
Well, I got 20 years worth of charts and graphs, but I don't know if I'm using the right colors or not, man. Mm-hmm. Nathan, closing thoughts?
Recovery means safer communities, stronger families, and a healthier citizenry. So that word right there, those three things for me, I keep trying to nail that into my thinking. And how does that work? As a cost benefit analysis, return on investment, all those things combined, we go right down to it. We build stronger families, safer communities, and a healthier citizenry.
Yeah, I see Debbie, you shouting out Chesterfield County CSB for giving someone you love a chance at an RCO. Chesterfield's one of those, warm partners. Like a lot of CSBs, I probably don't give enough credit to what they're doing right. I seem to focus on what I think they should be doing. So I'm probably at fault for that. But, McShin, we are getting growing support, not only from some of the CSBs and some of the state delegates and state senators. SAMHSA, we got a grant with them, and we might get a second grant from them. And, Henrico County's ponying up some funds that are very helpful, very useful. So I think there's a trickle coming in. And when I asked you earlier, what would you do different if you were me? The last thing I want to do is get in the way of that trickle. I want that trickle to start rolling faster. But at the same time, I feel like if I go silent, this stuff rolls over top of us too, because I'm surrounded by, a lot of new people in this space. And I don't think they understand what a kabuki dance really is. Same rhetoric, different day. And I feel like I'm one of the few people in this space that I'm not up in the woods. I'm not lost. I'm standing back. I see the whole forest. So I think I do got a bird's eye view on what should happen. I just don't know the right technique to get these guys make believers out of them.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're so glad you come down today. I hope it was helpful and fruitful for you to be here. I know the group's excited about you. I told them I have this wonderful man coming, going to share. So I got them all chomping at the bit. They didn't want to hear
Pressure's
me.
on now.
It is. Nathan, as
Expectations.
Always, it's so wonderful to have you, leading, getting a herd like you do, and getting that award for us, you and Alex.
It was Alex and Todd. Yeah,
that's a big deal. And then Todd, the man behind the curtain over there, running the show, man. My wife looked at your Christmas card. You and your 5 kids and your wife. You had your hat off. She said, "Who's that guy?" I said, "That's Todd, man. You never see him without his hat. He ain't got no hair, man. That's what he looks like without that hat." So what a beautiful family, you know. So thank you, Todd, for all your work. And everybody out there listening, hope you have a happy holidays. And for the men and women in the correctional facility that are probably going to hear this in the next 30 days, hang in there. There's a lot of people out here pulling for you, a lot of resources out here, but you got to kind of look for them. So I suggest when you get out of jail or prison, instead of looking for your drugs and your drug dealer, look for the people in recovery, look for the recovery community, make that connection. You will not be disappointed. I promise you that. You definitely want to be an old timer in recovery. I'll give you that much. So much love and peace to everybody. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Merry Christmas.
Here at McShin, we believe in the McShin way, which is authentic recovery support service providers, people with lived experience, bringing that experience to those who need that lived experience in recovery.
Here at McShin, we believe in many things to support our mission. We believe in women empowerment.
What I love most about what we believe here at McShin is we believe in the authenticity of the peer-to-peer approach.
Here at the McShin Foundation, we believe in giving people opportunity.
Here at McShin, we believe in the inherent worth and dignity of every person.
At the McShin Foundation, we believe in helping people reach their full potential.
Here at the McShin Foundation, we believe in multiple pathways to recovery.
Here at McShin, we believe in placing principles before personalities to help spread hope.
Here at McShin, we believe that recovery is possible and that any person seeking recovery can become a more acceptable, responsible, and productive member of society.
Here at the McShin Foundation, we believe in self-discovery.
Here at McShin, we believe in saving lives and offering second chances.
Here at McShin, we believe you can do this.
Here at McShin Foundation, we believe that we can only keep what we have by giving away, which is why we continue to help others like us seek and find recovery.
Any place, we'll get this soon, we'll get this soon.